सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. I'll try to share a few ideas on the science of enlightened management, Lord Krishna's way. Then we will try to internalize these ideas through questioning, because unless we question, we won't internalize. Let's question those ideas and see what comes out of. It's like a churning process, just like how the Milky Ocean was churned. Whatever comes out, let's share and enjoy. It is time that spirituality is infused the field of management. Not only in the field of management, in all the field, spirituality needs to be infused. All over the world, the need for spirituality has been felt. And Wall Street Journal is writing about Bhagavad Gita. All over the world, the management gurus are turning towards the Eastern ideas. The gurus who are based in the East are well respected, received, and the spiritual ideas are really not just heard, it is being practiced also. All over the world I am seeing people are now really sincere about the spiritual ideas, practicing them, because they really add something to you. They really contribute. And just last few years I am observing one more thing. People are not even going to the trekker kind of gurus. 10-15 years ago, that was the trend. The trekkers use yoga, all these Gita, all these ideas, use and interpret in their own language. People are not even going to that kind of gurus now anymore. They want straight, authentic source, from the source. The problem is the people who are from the source, they are not orators. They may be able to communicate, but they are not orators. They can't package it. But people are not bothering about the packaging now. They wanted the source. They are back to the source. I'll try to share a few ideas, few of my thoughts about Lord Krishna's way of management. I can say in our tradition, Krishna is the ultimate manager. You can see his whole life was management. Everything. He understood the Dharma so perfectly. He has become embodiment of Dharma. Let me define Dharma. Dharma is a strong experience of conflict-free inner space. Please understand. Dharma is an experience of conflict-free inner space. Actually, we carry two personalities, two identities. The identity which we show to the outer world. The identity which we present to the outer world as who we are, or how we wanted people to understand us, how we want people to respect us, relate with us. That identity, that's what we call ahankar in Sanskrit. It will always be more than what we are. What we present to the outer world, it will always be more than what we are. Please understand, every one of us are cooking our books. Every one of us. No, it's a basic truth. Every one of us are cooking our books. The ahankar, by its own nature, will always be much more than what we are. And we carry another identity. What we believe as we inside our inner space, that is called mamakar. That will be always lower than what is. Please understand. The identity which we present to the outer world, how we want people to recognize us, how we want people to understand about us, how we want people should know about us, that is called ahankar. It will be always more than what we are. Cooking books. And another identity, what we believe as we are inside our inner space, When you are in your bedroom, what you believe as you. When you are alone, what you think about you, what you believe as you. That's what we call mamakar. It will be always lower than what you are. That is why constant struggle, guilt, trying to develop, constant suffering. That's what I call hell. Hell is not geographical, it is psychological. You don't go to hell, you carry with you. We don't go to hell, we carry with us. Mamakar. Our life is nothing but a struggle between the ahankar and mamakar. Mamakar trying to become ahankar is our life. That's all. Please understand. Mamakar is always lower than what we are. Ahankar is always more than what we are. So constantly we show to the outer world more than what we are. And constantly we believe ourselves less than what we are. The struggle between these two is our life. When the struggle ends, when this conflict ends, when we live conflict free, we are in Dharma. We are centered in Dharma. Dharma is conflict free life. Pure inner space, where the conflict between ahankar and mamakar does not exist. Suddenly you see, your whole life is different. You attract different situations in your life and you handle the situations in a completely different way. You can see that whole drama in Krishna's life. The whole thing, I can say, Krishna's whole life, if I have to describe in one line, the pure romance with existence. He was in the pure romance even when he was in the war, when he was driving the chariot of Arjuna. He was in pure romance because he is established. Pure romance is what I call bhakti. The romance without any form or name. Romance not directed towards one object. It was overflowing energy. When you are conflict free, when there is no conflict between the ahankar and mamakar, suddenly you know how to manage everything. The management can never be taught. That's the truth. It can never be taught, but you can learn. It's like swimming. Swimming can never be taught, but you can learn. Krishna's way of management can never be taught. It can be learned. You can just say the expressions, few expressions of Krishna's inner space. Maybe you can fake it and make it. You can fake those few expressions and make the experience. That's the only way we can pick up the science of enlightened management. If you look little deep, the Krishna's life filled with conflicts, filled with complications, filled with problems. But he was a living example, or I can say is an experience of what is he expressed in Gita. Whatever he expressed, karmanyeva adhikaraste mabaleshu kadachana, so many ideas he is expressing. Is an experience, is an embodiment of all those expressions. If we can't, at least I can't teach you all those expressions. Maybe if you catch any one expression and try to fake it, in the initial level it will be like a faking only. That's what we call practicing. Any practice is faking, which is not there. You are trying to practice. You are trying to practice. Maybe by faking, you will make it. You will start experiencing it. Even one expression, if it leads you to the experience, you will be able to experience all the expressions. That is why I am saying it can't be taught. It can be only learned. You can't teach all the dimensions of Krishna's expressions. Krishna is expressing So many wonderful ways. I don't think we can teach all the expressions. Each incident, if you pick up and study, gives you a different lesson. And if you study after a few years, after you grow, you will see a different lesson. It's like the Krishna's life and the teachings. It has many different layers. From which layer you start seeing, you connect. From that layer you will start understanding. You will relate with it. You will start experiencing. I'll try to share the basic truth, the inner space of Krishna. Whatever I have experienced or I have understood, try to experiment with this idea. Try to play with this idea. There's every chance a new door can open inside your being. New experience can happen inside your being. Whatever is Krishna's expressions, all those expressions can start expressing through your being. Just only one simple technique, because there is so much to talk about Krishna, you can't. The whole India is talking about Krishna last 5,000 years. We have not done anything else except talking about Krishna. The whole India, go to North India, every street you will see Bhagavata Katha, Bhagavata Jnana Yajna going on. Whole India, and nobody else is able to impress the human consciousness like Krishna. I'll try to express and explain one simple technique to reach that inner space of Krishna, or establishing yourself in Dharma, establishing the conflict-free inner space. See, as I was explaining, you have two identities. One is Ahankar, which you present to the outer world. Another one is Mamakar, which you believe as you. As I was telling, one is always more than what we are. The other one is always lower than what we are. Means both are illusory. They are not real. They are not real. They are not solid experience of you. Somehow you started believing in the Ahankar and Mamakar as you. Continuously the thoughts which are happening inside us, you start connecting some thoughts and start giving meaning to it. For example, if you believe your whole life is a suffering, usually when I ask people, how are you? People say, no, even my enemy should not suffer like me. Everybody starts their biography. Nobody in the world would have suffered like me. If you start believing, even in that we want to be in the peak. Even in suffering, we want to be in the peak. If you start believing your life is a suffering, you wait for that kind of incidents to happen in your life. You don't remember anything else except suffering. You'll be just waiting. You create a shaft out of the thoughts and experiences which happens in your life. So many incidents are happening in your life. So many things are happening in your life. But you wait. You wait. Pick up only the incidents which confirms your faith. Whatever you believe about you, the incidents or the thoughts or the ideas or the experiences which confirms your belief. You pick up those thoughts and connect. You say, yes, see, I told you my life is suffering. Whatever I touch will go like this only. How many times I told? See, it's happening. You confirm again and again by picking up that kind of experiences and creating a shaft. That's what I call pain shaft. We have a very strong pain shaft in our being. You are waiting for pain. Please understand, we are all waiting for pain. We are just waiting for painful experiences. If it does not happen, we have painful memories in our stock. We take them and start cherishing. We have enough stock. We take them out and start cherishing. Whatever we believe as our life, as our being, we again and again reinforce, we again and again strengthen. See, the basic instinct of human being is adding to whatever you believe as you. That's why if we believe we are human beings, we create more human beings. Whatever we think as we, whatever we believe as we try to reproduce. Person who is in the field of the politics, he tries to reproduce more politicians. Who has taken spiritual life, he tries to create more and more spiritual people. Whatever you believe as you try to reproduce. And you have a confidence, anything reproduced by you will always be lower than you. So you feel superior by reproducing. More and more pieces or things like you are the space in which you are staying. If you believe your life is a suffering, constantly you attract this kind of thoughts, ideas, experiences and strengthen it. That's what I call pain shaft. Sometimes, very rarely, we believe our life is a joy. Very rarely. We believe our life is a joy by reading this positive thinking, all these kinds of books. Please understand, I am not going to teach you positive thinking. No. I think I've seen many times. After reading the books like How to Stop Worrying, Start Living, one more worry you add, how to stop worrying. One more worry is added to our being. Till we read the book, we had only 10 worries. Now we have 11th worry, how to stop worrying. And positive thinking is impossible. Please understand, Krishna doesn't talk, not only doesn't talk, he doesn't acknowledge positive thinking. Throughout the Gita, the idea of positive thinking is never encouraged. And in our Vedic science, we never encourage positive thinking. No Upanishad talks about positive thinking. Only in the later, some of the traditions have started talking about positive thinking. It's like the whole thinking is waste. There is no such thing as positive and negative. Either you are in a complete conflict-free inner space or you are in confusion. There is no question of positive thinking. And I want you to know about this. Dale Carnegie. How many of you read his book that, yes, he wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, and How to Stop Worrying, Start Living, Dale Carnegie. How many of you read his books? I want you to know an important truth. Next to Bible, his books have been printed and sold. Next to Bible means second Messiah, practically. Next to Bible. In that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about how to avoid suicidal tendencies. And another one book, how to start living and how to stop worrying and start living. In that book only he talks about how to come out of suicidal tendencies. In this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about how to have a romantic, loving relationship with your wife. This is the main theme of these two books. Any of you read his biography? He committed suicide because he was not able to live with his wife. No, it's a truth. It's a fact. I was shocked. See, the second Messiah means he himself is not able to practice what he is teaching. Actually, it is very easy to become a philosopher in the West. All you need to do is talk about the problem in a very beautiful way. Explain in a very lucid, beautiful way about the problem. Never give solution. See, when you talk about the problem, when I talk about some problem which you experience in a very big way, you feel very comfortable. You feel very connected. Yes, he knows what I am going through. But you never bother whether you have something for it, for some solution. You feel very consoled. People want only consolation. They don't want solution. See, actually, people want only consolation. They want to know that other person is also in the same plane. They want to know everybody understands what I am going through. They want only support, not solution. So if you want to become a philosopher, very easy. Just talk beautiful use all kinds of words to express the problem, to explain the problem. Never give solution. Second thing, whatever you can't practice, give a solution. These two is enough. You will see, you become a big philosopher. And third, you need to hide that you are not able to practice. That's another one thing. I think it is very easy. Only thing, you should not appear and give public lectures. Dale Carnegie was always afraid of giving public lectures. He says that people will find out I am not the person as I am expressing myself in the book. He was afraid. He says, when people read my books, they have an idea about me. When they see and hear when they hear me directly, when they listen to me directly, the idea changes. Because when you are sitting and talking, your body language will clearly express. That is why in our tradition, we never believed in reading. We always believed in hearing, listening, smriti. Listening, shruti. Listening is God in our tradition. Just listening. Listening means what? The person who is sitting and talking, you can see his body language. Whether he is confident about what he is talking. You can see whether he has experienced or not. I always tell people, it is not what I am talking. It is the confidence which I am expressing in my body language. The courage which is being expressed in the eyes. That will take these words and give you a direct experience. There is a beautiful expression in our Sanskrit. 3 words. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana means listening. Manana means contemplating, internalizing. Nididhyasana means expressing, living it. If you listen the truths from a living master, you don't need the second step, internalizing. The power of the master, the power, the confidence which he radiates. When you listen, sitting, the confidence, the energy, the courage which he radiates will directly make you internalize those words. You don't need to internalize. He may not be expressing in a very polished language. His language will be very... He may be able to express his ideas, that's all. That is why in Sanskrit we have something called Arsha Prayoga. Rishis doesn't have to obey the grammar. No grammar rule binds them. They can make any mistake and interpret anything in any way. It's called Arsha Prayoga. Because they are trying to express which can't be expressed. They are trying to express subtle truths. So language cannot be one more disturbance for them. Expressing itself is a very big task. Their very body language will convey the truth. That itself is enough. Anyhow, I am not going to talk about positive thinking. Very rarely we believe life is a joy. Those moments again, the next problem immediately starts, that how long it is going to stay. How long it is going to stay. And there is a next immediate problem. See, now if you felt some suffering or sadness or depression, you never think how long it is going to stay, it is going to go away. No. But when you feel the joy, or when you feel conflict-free inner space for a few moments, immediately you start thinking, I don't know how long it is going to stay. So you have a strong belief your inner space should be depressed. That is your nature. You feel comfortable with it. Sort of you started feeling connected to it. You feel that is your inner space. That is where you are supposed to be. You started thinking that is what is your nature. That is why when you feel kind of a joy or bliss or ecstasy, some moments you feel in the life, you start thinking, no, I don't know how long it is going to stay. And we strongly believe if everything goes well today, tomorrow is going to be a worse day. And we have very strong faith. We are very clear about it. And we wait for some incident. If we don't get any incident in our life, we open the newspaper. and pick up from newspaper. And we say, yeah, no. You see, I know. Yesterday was so wonderful, so beautiful. I know. Today is going to be the worst day. Somehow, I very strongly believe that is our nature. Anyhow, whether you believe life is a pain shaft or a joy shaft, please understand both are lies, because the shaft does not exist. It's created by you. Life is neither a pain shaft nor a joy shaft. It is just conflict freeness, conflict free inner space. Choicelessness is dharma. You can ask, if I am choiceless, how can I make decisions? It's a big problem. How can I make decisions? And after all, I am talking about management. Management, every moment, you need to take decisions. Please understand, what I am proposing may look impractical. One more thing I want to tell you. If I am a sannyasi who is sitting in a forest and I am proposing, stop choosing, be in a choicelessness, be unclutched, then you can say, no, he is a sannyasi, he is sitting in a forest, he has to live that dharma and he has to talk that dharma. It's okay. We can at least put up with it. In the modern day, we are all managing. We are all directly serving the society. Some way we are contributing. Maybe non-profit end of the day, but the whole day we are managing. Maybe the results are handed over to the society, given back to society, but the whole day we are doing the same thing which you are doing. We have not done karma tyaga. We have done only karma palatyaga. The results of the karma is sacrificed. But we have not done karma tyaga. We have not renounced the work itself. So we are doing what you are doing every day. Please understand. From my own experience, I am telling you. All you need is a little courage to be in the conflict-free inner space. The choiceless inner space. Suddenly you see something happens. That something only I am not able to verbalize, and if we are able to verbalize that something, long before we would have started selling enlightenment. It is such a strong shift in your inner space. I'll try to explain this technique. Maybe you will be able to catch the truth, catch what I am trying to express. The pain shaft or the joy shaft, both are illusory. Imagination, which is not there, but which gives you the suffering or experience as if it is there. That's what we call Maya. In Sanskrit, we have a word, Yama iti Maya, which is not there, but which makes you feel as if it is there. Which is not there, but which gives you an experience of fear and greed as if it is there. This joy shaft and pain shaft, both of them are not there, but which gives you the feeling as if it is there. Pain shaft gives you the fear. You just want to break and come out of it. Joy shaft gives you the greed. You wanted it to be everlasting. It should be there forever. It creates fear and greed, but which is not there. It is not there, but it creates fear and greed. Please understand the wonderful technique to come out of it. I use the word unclutching, just like a Mahavagyas, Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi, just like a Mahavagyas from the Vedic tradition. I call this word as a Mahavagya. Unclutching. Continuously, whatever is happening in you, try to unclutch whatever you think is happening in you, whether it is right or wrong or good or bad or anything. Please understand, I talk from my own experience. The moment I use the word unclutching, especially the people from the West, of course, we are all now mentally Westerners only. Our mental setup or psychology, maybe geographically we are in India, but basically what India is Anyhow, the education system is a Western education system. No, best naturally we are based on that education system. We are that kind of being. Anybody who is trained in the Western education system, they get the shock. They say, "What do you mean by unclutching, Swamiji? What do you mean by relaxing into the choicelessness?" Please understand, I talk from my experience, not only my own experience. I'm working with thousands and thousands of disciples who are managers, who are in all fields. From their experience also, I tell you, when you unclutch, when you relax into the conflict-free inner space, suddenly the non-mechanical parts of your brain is awakened. Awakening that non-mechanical parts of your brain is what I call spiritual awakening. In Sanskrit, we use the word di. Pratyagatma Chaitanya Jagrata. Awakening the non-mechanical parts of the brain. See, if you are living, whatever is mechanical parts of your brain, it will be functioning just by your very birth. Just because you are a human being, it will function. First birth, your physical birth, it will start functioning. But if you learn the science of unclutching and relax into that silence, the non-mechanical parts of the brain is awakened. That is what we call second birth, Dvija. Anybody who is initiated into the Vedic science is called Dvija, second birth. If you are initiated into the science of Vedic tradition, we call that person as a Dvija, reborn. Because when you understand how to be in the space where there is no conflicts, how to be in the choicelessness, the non-mechanical parts of your brain is awakened. Intuition. The modern day, the intuitive management word has become very popular. They know only word, we know the science. Please understand, they know only the word, we know the science. Awakening the non-mechanical parts of the brain is what I call essence of this Vedic science, the science of enlightened management. All you need is a little courage. People ask me, no, you say I should relax. End of the session, I'll try to give you the simple technique, this unclutching. I'll try to give it as a technique. You can practice it anytime you need. All you need is a little courage to experiment with this technique. See, any number of books, lectures cannot convince you that you can swim till you see somebody swimming. They can't convince you. You will ask, no, how is it possible? How man can float on the water? It is impossible. No. The lecturer says, no, move your right hand 5 times, move your left leg 10 times. No, you will say, here I am moving 20 times, but I can't swim. I can't float on the water. No intellectual question can be answered about swimming. You cannot be convinced that you can float by answering the intellectual questions. You can only jump and experience. Same way, I cannot convince you you will become a better manager by relaxing into the silence. Because logically, it doesn't go. Our logic doesn't agree. What is this? I thought he will give some technique. He will give some ideas how to make better decisions. He is telling us, be in silence, be in choicelessness. People always ask me, if I am unclutched, if I start living in choicelessness, I will not work, I will not go to the job, I will just sleep. I tell them, how many days you can sleep? Come on, tell me. Lie down, it's okay. How many days you can lie down in the bed? Not more than 5-6 days. See, our body is made out of rajas, tamas and sattva. The tamas, inert feeling. Rajas, restlessness. Sattva, completely being balanced. 33%. Now, you suppress your tamas Because of your restlessness, you did not give enough vacation or rest to your body. Maybe because of that, when you unclench, first few days you will feel tamasic. You may not be active. But I tell you, once that tamas is exhausted in few days, just 4 or 5 days or 5 6 days, suddenly you will see a new energy. You are totally balanced. You are working out of sattva, waiting till the tamas exhausts and trusting the technique, living the technique even when the tamas is leaving your system is what I call tapas. Waiting. Waiting for the technique to express itself. Waiting for the truth to become reality in you. That waiting, it will not take more than few days. Even if you feel lazy, tamasic, feeling like not doing anything, just relax into the choicelessness. I tell you. And one more thing, I am responsible for what I am talking. I know the side effect, after effect, and aftermath of this kind of teachings. I am responsible for what I am talking because I have experienced it. I have experimented it with all kinds of people, the different kinds of people. So I tell you, the essence of the science of enlightened management is unclutching and relaxing in that conflict-free zone. I am not even telling you to relax into that zone 24 hours. I am telling whenever you remember, whenever you feel like, relax into that zone. It's like whenever the suffering is too much, the torture is too much, whenever you feel suffocation, you will remember, oh, let me relax. Whenever you remember, relax into that inner space. I'll give you the technique of how to relax into that inner space, how to rest into that inner space by unclutching. It's a very simple method, very simple process. We don't need to think, we don't need to plan, we don't need any qualification. It's a very simple process, unclutching, what we call nirvigalpa. In Vedanta tradition, we call that by using the word nirvigalpa. No vigalpa, without any vigalpa, just being nirvigalpa. If you can, relax into that inner space, into that conflict-free inner space, suddenly you will see the non-mechanical parts of your brain awakening. You will start experiencing different kind of energy. That's what we call in yogic tradition Kundalini awakening, awakening the bioenergy. So many different words we use. See, when you come to a balance, suddenly you see new light opening up, new experience happening. You don't have to think, no, these all, only if it happens, till then what will I do? Please understand, it's a very clear science. It's a very clear science. I can say, I can clearly define, please do this. Maximum only this many number of days are needed. This will be the experience. I can very clearly define it. There is no need for any assumption, imagination. It's a very clear, straightforward science. All you need is a little courage to experiment, play with it. In the North India, I have seen, in the Agra area, I spent 9 years in walking, length and breadth of India. In Agra area, I have seen hunters using this kind of a stick. They will put a small stick and a rope to catch birds. You may think how a bird can be caught just with this. So they will hang, like this they will hang between two trees. Bird will come and sit one side. Immediately what will happen? Because of the weight, it will turn. Because it turns, now naturally bird will be hanging upside down. It will be holding the stick and hanging upside down. The poor bird can never understand, if it lets go, it can just fly. It thinks, if I relax, I may fall, I may break my head, I may die, I may suffer. It will be just hanging for hours. And slowly the hunter will come, catch the bird and put it in the cage. Just like that bird which can't understand, if it let go, it can just fly, escape. Same way, we can't understand intellectually. If we relax from our mind, we will become Paramahamsas. We can fly. We can just fly. If we relax from the mind. See, just how that bird feels, that stick is a security. The stick is a security. It doesn't feel, if it relaxes, it can fly. It feels, no, no, no. If I relax, I may fall, break the head and die. Have you ever heard bird falling and dying? Please understand, the foolish bird doesn't have courage to relax and let go. Same way, we don't have courage to relax from our mind. We strongly believe, actually, if you make your boss understand that you are important for the whole scene, if you are not there in the scene, the whole thing will be collapsed. You can exploit him. Once he is convinced, you can do whatever you want. Same way, your mind has convinced you. The whole scene, your mind says, unless I am there, you can't handle the scene. You are convinced that your mind is an important factor. Your mind is basic need. Then you are bound. Please understand, you feel mind is a security. I tell you, just like how that bird feels, the mind is a security and hanging. The bird feels that stick is a security and it is hanging. Hunter comes slowly and he takes away even from that stick. Same way, whatever we feel as a security, the mind, we continuously hang. And the Yama, death will come and he will take us away even from that. Please understand, relax from it. You will never fall. You will never disturb yourself. You will never break your head. You will just fly. You will become Paramahamsas. You will experience new inner space. Actually, the bird which was caught like that, but which had a courage, somehow, maybe by accident or some reason, it relaxed and it understood. It has not fallen. It has flied. That bird is coming and now telling you, relax. That bird is coming and telling you now, relax. I have not fallen. I have not broke my head. I only become Paramahamsa. So relax. You will only become Paramahamsa.